So I want to talk tonight about an aspect of this, I guess I want to call it conflict or this issue that's not really, it's interesting, it's not spoken about almost at all, and yet it really is the crux of everything that you guys see today in terms of the way that things are reported in the media, the way that Israel's portrayed in the media, the way that Israel's portrayed on campus, on college campuses, the way that just everything you guys see today, and also the this notion and this idea of a Palestinian state. Both of those things, or all the things that I just mentioned, they all come from one place. They all come from one, literally physical place, one country, and a particular ideology within that country. And I've written about this, guys, and I mentioned this before, but I don't know if I mentioned it enough, and I think it should be stressed. It's not even mentioned, much less stressed enough. And I'm talking about the Soviet Union. And I'm speaking as a person who was born in the Soviet Union, in the former Soviet Union. I was a little kid when my family took me out of there. I can tell you guys that, if you guys want to know anything in terms of from the horse's mouth, what I'm saying, all I'm saying is, or all I'm doing when I'm saying the things that I will be saying is mimicking or parroting what was given over not only by my parents, but people who went through what they went through in the Soviet Union. And I'll just tell you guys, I'll just start off by telling you guys that before I get into the whole thing about the Palestinian state or the Palestinian nation, I will just tell you guys that in 1967, when Israel was attacked by Arab armies, by 5 Arab armies, and they miraculously won, my parents were, I guess, in the equivalent of junior high school. And, my father was a little bit lucky, I guess you could say lucky, because he went to a predominantly Jewish school. Over there, it was kind of like junior high school combined with high school, or even elementary school going into high school. My mother wasn't so lucky. She went to a predominantly Ukrainian, I guess you can even say anti-Semitic school. And, they were called, her and her friends were called names. They had things thrown at them. And at that time, boys didn't really have issues picking on girls, meaning there wasn't a thing of like, oh man, a boy shouldn't hit a girl. Yeah, they picked on them. My mother was picked on by these Ukrainian anti-Semite boys, and they called them, aggressors. They said that Israel's the aggressor. They said the Jews are the aggressors. The newspapers reported that Jews are the ones that started this war. Why? Because Moshe Dayan did a preemptive strike on Egypt because there were tanks lined up, right? That's essentially how we were able to win. And so most people don't know this, that whatever the Palestinian movement became later on, it started with Yasser Arafat, and Yasser Arafat was trained by the Soviets. He was trained in military, he was trained in propaganda, he was trained in just pretty much everything. All the stuff you guys see today in media, how to manipulate the media, what you call agitprop. He was trained, he was taught how to build a nation from scratch. Why would the Soviets do that? The Soviets would do that because they saw that, the state of Israel, which they hoped would be kind of a socialist satellite, they saw that this was not going to happen. And so they turned their gaze towards the Arabs. They saw that there was a movement in the Arab world for something called Pan-Arabism. This was basically led by Nasser, the president of Egypt, and he was going to lead the, so to speak, Arab Ummah, the Arab nation. Collectively speaking, if you basically would take all the nation states and put them into one giant kind of pan-Arabist, I guess, conglomerate, and that would be a communist/socialist state. And the Soviets saw this and they said, okay, well, since America's kind of tepidly supporting Israel, or at least Israel is not going to go along with our agenda, let's choose someone else. Also, there's obviously oil involved and economics and all these other things. But basically, they found a guy, actually he was half Egyptian, by the name of Yasser Arafat, and he was a willing trainee. And if you guys don't believe me, first of all, this is well recorded. Second of all, you could see photos of Yasser Arafat attending the funeral of his handler, of his KGB mentor in Moscow. He's in Moscow attending his funeral. Not only that, most people don't know this, but Mahmoud Abbas, his successor, received his PhD in Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow. The PhD, I'll tell you exactly what the name of what the title of the PhD was. Here you go. The title of the PhD is "The Other Side: The Secret Relationship." Sorry, guys. Between Nazism and Zionism. And so, just 1 second. Yeah, published in 1984 in Arabic, republished in 2011. Basically, the whole premise of this wonderful paper, see, it says, the connections between the Nazis and leaders of the Zionist movement, defended at the Institute of Oriental Studies. Wow, what an offensive name, title. Of the Soviet Academy of Sciences. So see, in the paper, or it's called a book, but it's really a paper. It's a 150-page paper. Abbas argues that Nazi perpetrated Holocaust had been exaggerated and that Zionists created the myth of 6 million murdered Jews, which he called a fantastic lie. He further claimed that those Jews who were killed by the Nazis were actually the victims of Zionist Nazi plot aimed to fuel vengeance against the Jews and expand their mass extermination. Yes, my friends. And this goes on, and he writes about the whole supposedly agreements between Zionists and there were conversations between the Zionist movement and the Nazis, but he basically denies the Holocaust that even happened, right? So, guys, just so you understand, so they taught Arafat how to build a state. So he went. This happened actually in 1964. He went and he started building before even a state, a national identity of this patchwork of tribes that call themselves, quote-unquote, the Palestinians. The Arabs who hail from Iraq, some families hail from Iraq, Yemen, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria. In the 20s, guys, there's a picture, there's a photo that, there was a protest by Palestinians, and they were holding up signs in front of, I guess, the British, holding up signs saying, we're all Syrian, right? So at that time, they were all Syrian, the Arabs that lived here, right? My neighbors over here. All of a sudden, they became Palestinians, right? Before that, my friend says Grand Mufti was Hitler's friend, yeah. So, but after that, it was basically the Soviets that, helped these guys to get organized. No rhyme intended. And so they began this whole national movement. They had the PLO, the Fatah, which is the armed wing, and today became the PA. And they just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, going to the UN. And obviously, in the 70s, they got a whole thing of, they got the UN to pass this whole thing of Zionism as racism, because the Jewish people have and it's interesting, you guys, you could see a speech by Rabbi Meir Kahana, where he basically says, guys, Israel has a law of return. If you read it on its face value, it's a very, very racist sounding law of return. It wasn't made by he calls himself, it wasn't made by your supposed fascist Kahana or the fascist Begin. It was made by the Labor Party, the people who founded the state of Israel. But the first rulers, the Mapai, the Mapam, whatever it is, the lefties, right, made this racist law of return for the state of Israel. Basically that says that Jews, this is a Jewish state. And now finally we passed this law, and now they're calling all the Likudniks and all the right-wing people fascists for this, right? Where was I going with this, guys? But yeah, so Zionism, they got them to pass a thing that Zionism equals racism. And then that was, I guess, eliminated, or I guess it was repealed or turned back. I guess when the first Bush, Daddy Bush came in, Bush 41, and they repealed that. But yeah, they just kept pushing their agenda. They went onto college campuses. They kept pushing this idea, occupation and apartheid, and they stole a lot of things. And all of these things were taught to them by the Soviets. All of these tactics, all of these media propaganda skills that they have, that they've acquired, that you guys see today, literally, from CNN to BBC to every single news outlet, was taught to them by the Soviets. And also, they even the notion of a state, they learned from the Soviets. So now, my friends, we have a situation today where we're basically battling, we see all the lies in the media, we see all the propaganda, we see now, they're trying to get statehood in the UN for, again, a patchwork of tribes that come from different countries. Guys, I want to read to you guys where some of the names in this area of the Middle East, some of the Arab names, and I'll tell you exactly where these names are from, what nation states, where they're from, actually. 1 second. Let's do Palestinian names. Here, let's just do one of the names. Here you go. For example, there's a name. Okay. Here. They even have a page called Palestine Family. And, here. Okay. See, they have different nomenclature, stuff like that. Yeah, it's Saudi, Egypt, Syria. But I want to read to you guys the names. Here you go. Okay. There was a video somebody made, and they wrote in the description all of the names and all the countries all nation states, where those names come from. Palestinian, Egyptian. Here. Let's do. Okay. Who's boss in media? Are you? Okay. Hollywood, are you serious? Well, my friend Micha, whatever you call yourself, unfortunately, the people you're describing, the boss of the media and all these other people, and the banks, a lot of those Jews are ashamed to. There you go. Here you go. See, this is a title called Palestinians are amidst as Hamas members, they are just Saudis and Egypt. Here you go. Okay. Let's read. Just like Saddam Hussein al-Tikriti, born in Tikrit, Iraq, the family names of Nisba, of Arabs who now occupy Judea, reveal their country of origin. Let's just read this list, guys, and we'll understand what's going on over here. Masri or Masri, Egypt. Hamas member of parliament Gaza Mushir al-Masri. Literally means the Egyptian. Khamis, Bahrain, Salem Khan Khamis. Al-Ubayyidi, or Al-Ubaidis from Sudan. Al-Faruqi, Iraq, Mosul. Al-Araj, Morocco, from the Saudi dynasty, Hussein al-Araj. Al-Lubnani, the Lebanese. Al-Mughrabi, the Moroccan. Al-Jazair, the Algerian. Al-Qurashi, from Saudi, the Quraysh, the guys who came to the Jews, or at the Jews. Al-Azd, Yemen. Al-Yamani, also Yemen. Al-Afghani, Al-Sidawi, Sidon, Lebanon. Al-Fayoumi, Egypt. Al-Hijazi, Saudi Arabia. Al-Hindi, Indian, Amin al-Hindi. Tamimi, Banu Tamim. Hamati, Syria, Hama. Umayyad, like Umayyad, Banu Umayyad, Saudi Arabia. Ottoman, Turkey. Murad, Yemen. Alawi, Syria. Iraq, like Alawites. Iraqi, Halabi, Dajan, that's Aleppo, like Halabi, you have Halabi Jews from Aleppo, Syria. Dajani, Saudi Arabia. Matar, Yemen. Al-Baghdadi, Iraq. Tarbelsi, Lebanon. Tripoli, Trabelsi. Hurani, Syria. Zubaydi, Iraq. Al-Husayni, Saudi. Metzarwa, Egypt. Bardawil, Nasashibi, Syria. That was a big, very rich Palestinian family here. Bushnak, Bosnia. Interesting. So Zoabi, so like Hanin Zoabi, Muhammad Zoabi, Iraq. Turkey, Al-Kurd, Kurdistan, Hadadins, Yemen, Arab Abu Kishk, Egypt Bedouins, Arab al-Shakirat, Arab al-Sabidat, Aramsha, all these guys are Bedouins mean Egypt. Abu Sita means father of six. Or like, if you guys know, like Syrian Jews, Sit, that's six. These guys are from Egypt. Nuba, Hebron, from Hebron. Some of them might be even Jewish, actually. Arafat, the famous Fakistinian leader of terrorist group PLO, is not native to Judea. He called himself a Palestinian refugee. Claimed he was born in Jerusalem, but spoke Arabic with an Egyptian dialect. So he was half, actually. He was born in Cairo, served in the Egyptian army, studied in the University of Cairo, lived in Cairo until 1956. Arafat's full name, Muhammad Abdul Rahman Abdul Rauf, Al-Aqud, Arafat Al-Qudwa Al-Husseini, Al-Qudwa tribe origin, Midja. All you have to do is watch the media and see how they lie against Israel. That's all you have to do. It doesn't matter who runs it, okay? There's no Palestinian nation. Okay. So, my friends, you guys can basically see these are people who were just here from different nation states, from different areas. They never had a nation. They were never unified. They have different tribes. Some of they didn't intermarry until very, very recently. And their leader, Arafat, who's from Egypt, was taught how to create a state because there had to be a state created to be, this was something that was part of the Cold War. And again, propaganda. Israel is the aggressor. Big bad Israel. My friends, it used to be that Israel was the little weak, not weak, but small nation, kind of the underdog, and they were the darling of Western Europe. Now, no more. Why? Because you guys see there's a sizable Muslim population in Europe, Western Europe, and now we understand what's coming out of Europe, out of the European media, European NGOs. We know the whole story with NGOs. What's his name? Tuvia Tannenbaum. If you ever guys read the book Catch the Jew, he writes extensively about all the NGOs that fund the Palestinian movement. So, but guys, we see this stuff, we hear about it, but we don't really understand where it comes from. We're just wondering what is the source of this stuff, and now we understand. And I'm just appalled as a former Soviet citizen, but I guess Hashem made it so that we have to give you guys the message that you need to understand that this comes from a particular place. All the stuff that you're seeing, whether it's the Palestinian state movement, whether it's the propaganda, the stuff on campuses, the stuff in the media, it all came from one place, the KGB. In Russian, I'll say it in Russian, Комитет государственной безопасности, the committee of, or the government committee of security. Well, I guess you could say safety, but it's really security. And they taught Yasser Arafat how to do all of these things. And, as you guys know, the famous quote, if you tell a lie long enough, and persistently enough, people start to perceive it as truth. They start to believe it. And now we are started in 1964, so we're talking about, a good 50-something years later, and here we are, my friends. Here we are. And we should know that all the stuff that we see in the media, all the lies, all the manipulations, all these things, and all the stuff our friend is saying about the media and the banks and this and that and the other, all the stuff was propagated in the USSR about the Jews, as they like to call it, Zionistic activities. You guys should know that anybody who learned, any Jews in the Soviet Union who learned Torah, Hebrew language, Jewish history, it was done underground in private apartments, and they would be caught by the authorities. It was called Zionistic activities. The irony is that you meet some of these rabbis, these Russian rabbis, the black hat, like Blitzbach rabbis, and they say, well, they called us Zionists. I don't consider myself a Zionist. That's what they'll tell you, but they called it Zionistic activities. That's what they called it. All right, and that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. And honestly, this is, to me, I look at it as the greatest story never told. And in order for us to not only understand, but to be able to combat what's going on with the media and all these kind of things, No, not Russia, my friend. Again, you like to manipulate the words. The Soviet Union created all of this. The Soviet Union, for their own purposes, created all of this. Okay, it's not a question of Russia is our main enemy. It's just a question of where do these things come from? You're asking when was Israel created as a state in 48? The state was being built with actually Hasidic Jews who came here in the 1800s. In the early 1800s, they came here and they bought. They did not steal. They did not displace. There was no war. They bought land from Arabs. And today, any Arab that sells any land or any house to a Jew has to go into hiding. Mr. Sadl, I don't know how you pronounce your name. He has to go into hiding. He has to go to Europe. I don't know where he has to go. He has to go figure out a way how to get away from the Palestinian Authority, from Hamas, because he has sold a house to a Jew and he's basically a traitor. Okay? So we're still buying property most of the time. Most of the time. Yeah, my friends. So in order for us to understand how to combat what we're seeing in front of us, we have to understand the source. We have to get to the root of the problem. Because if we don't understand it, we don't understand where it comes from, we don't understand the kind of the terminology and the ideology, we're just going to be, as we've been with our PR agencies and all this wonderful thing.